Ever feel like, that feeling when you're kind of like stuck between what you want to do and what everyone expects you to do?
Hmm.
Like society wants to put you in a box
Mm-hmm.
and you just, you know, resist it. Well, today we're diving deep into a book that gets this. John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. We're going straight to the source. These excerpts are incredible. From Penn State University's digital library. Super cool stuff.
Oh, it's amazing actually how timely Mill's ideas still are. I mean, he was writing back in the, Victorian era. Imagine England, but like even stricter, more rules than usual. And Mill's like, hold on a sec, maybe individuals should have a bit more freedom than this.
I know, right? He was going against the grain big time. But this isn't just some Victorian throwback, is it? I mean, think about Socrates, sentenced to death. Not for doing anything, but for his ideas.
Hmm.
Early Christians, punished just for what they believed. This fight, this freedom versus control thing, it's like woven into history.
Absolutely. It's timeless. And Mill gives us this framework for wrapping our heads around it. He called it the harm principle. And the simplest way to put it is we can only really justify limiting someone's freedom if they're going to harm another person. That's the key.
Okay, so break that down for me, Lloyd. He's not saying, do whatever you want, no consequences.
All right. Yeah, it's not anything goes. The harm principle is about boundaries. Where's the line? You know that old saying, your right to swing your fist ends where my nose begins?
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's like that. But here's where Mill gets radical. He says your own well-being isn't reason enough to restrict your freedom.
Wait, really? So even if it's clearly bad for me, like, I don't know, I eat an entire cheesecake in one sitting, society's cool with that. Hands off.
That's what Mill would argue. He'd say it's your life, your cheesecake, your potential stomach ache. As long as you're not hurting someone else, it's your choice, even the bad ones.
That is wow. Makes you think about all the little ways we try to control each other, even when we mean well.
And Mill got that good intentions, they can be dangerous too. He was really worried about what he called the tyranny of the majority. So like, even in a democracy, the majority could still crush individuality just by sheer numbers, stop progress.
That's a scary thought. So how do we guard against that? If it's for your own good is off the table, then what? What's the deciding factor between freedom and, I don't know, utter chaos? Where's the line?
Right. So this is where another one of Mill's biggies comes in handy. It's called the marketplace of ideas, like I don't know, a bazaar, but for thoughts. He thought the best way to find truth, to make society better, was to let all ideas duke it out, even the ones that make us cringe.
Okay, so not censorship, but like the opposite. Air it all out, then see what holds up.
You got it. Mill thought even bad ideas, right? They still do something useful. They make us up our game, explain why we believe what we do. And hey, every now and then, a so-called bad idea, it has a little nugget of truth in there, something we can learn from.
It makes you think about those times you just go along with something, because, well, that's how it's always been done, right? Never questioned it.
Mill, he was really wary of that, blindly following tradition, just because he saw it as like a sneaky form of control, could stifle you, as a person, hold society back from finding better ways of doing things.
I bet he'd be a big fan of questioning everything, huh? Don't just take things at face value.
Oh, absolutely. Huge believer in individuality, even being a little eccentric, different ways of living, different opinions. That was essential to him. Not just to be different for the sake of it, but like you figure out your own path, what you value, then go for it.
This makes me think about some debates we have going on right now, like uh, those sin taxes they put on sugary drinks.
Yeah.
Or even those laws about what you can and can't do on a Sunday. Would Mill be, like, totally against all that?
There you go. Straight back to the harm principle. I like it. So Mill, he got that some government is needed, right? To keep things running smoothly, prevent harm, education, infrastructure, even laws to protect people from getting hurt or tricked. But using the law to, like, impose one set of morals or to control choices that aren't hurting anyone else. He was very hesitant about that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That line between what's good for everybody and what's just, I don't know, too much control.
Exactly. It's a balancing act for sure. And Mill, he gives us some tools to think about it, right? He thought that local communities should have more of a say in how they do things instead of like a big central authority making all the calls. More power to the people, basically. Let different areas experiment with what works for them.
Interesting. So more localized, but then how do you, I don't know, keep everyone on the same page if you're so spread out?
Mill was a big believer in information. The more people knew, the better they could make decisions about their own lives, hold the powerful accountable.
It's like he almost predicted the internet.
Right.
All this info everywhere, everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah. He was onto something with that, that's for sure. But I gotta say, even Mill would probably be freaking out a little if he saw how much info is out there now. I bet he'd be all about those critical thinking skills, learning how to filter the noise, figure out what's actually true, what matters.
So it's not just like having the info, it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
And maybe even harder, being okay with being wrong sometimes,
Yeah. Oh, tell me about it. It takes a certain, humility to admit you don't know it all. But that's where the real growth is, right? For each of us and for society even. And that's what gets me about Mill. He's not just giving you the rules. He's like, think for yourselves, people. Challenge everything. Talk it out, even when you disagree.
Yeah, yeah. Like he's handing us tools, not telling us how to build the thing, right? He's saying, here are some ideas, now go wrestle with them. The world's messy, go get messy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that mess, all that questioning and searching, that's where you find real freedom. It's not about having perfect answers. It's about being brave enough to ask the tough questions, keep looking for the truth, even when you're, stumbling around in the dark.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into John Stuart Mill's brain, what I keep coming back to is, how do I define harm? Where do I draw the line? Those aren't just like big head-in-the-clouds questions. They change how we live, how we treat each other, what kind of world we build.
And that's the power of this work, right? Mill, he makes you confront that stuff. He reminds us freedom means responsibility. It's a package deal. And truth, it's not a destination. It's a journey, man.
Totally. So to everyone listening, keep those questions close. The harm principle, this marketplace of ideas, being your own person, all that. And never, ever stop questioning things.
Because like Mill said, better than I ever could, it's when ideas clash, when we're free to think differently. That's how we grow, as people, as a society, the whole shebang.
Love it. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder all this awesome stuff. This has been a deep dive into the mind of John Stuart Mill, a thinker who is still so relevant today. Hope it's got you thinking, maybe spark some interesting chats with your friends, all that good stuff. Until next time, keep exploring these big ideas, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep those minds open.